All right, well, thank you for attending today. Really excited to talk to you about Black Soldier Fly Larvae ingredients. My colleague Carrie is in the back. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have that we don't address in the presentation today. So I want to start just with an overview of the journey that this industry's been on in the United States and North America. In 2016, we had no regulatory approval for BSFL-derived ingredients. And so that journey started with FDA, CVM, and AAFCO to demonstrate safety in a number of species. So that began with aquaculture species and salmonids. Doesn't work, so I won't point there. And so the first approval was defined in trout. Subsequently, we then defined safety and efficacy in broilers and layers, resulting in AAFCO approval for BSFL ingredients in poultry. And then that moved into swine with demonstrated safety in nursery pigs, and then adult dogs and adult cats. So tremendous journey in our regulatory approval process, opening markets for whole-dried larvae, BSFL meal, and BSFL oil in the United States over the last 7 or 8 years. Really exciting and proud to demonstrate now our safety and efficacy of these ingredients in gestation, lactation, and growth of a very sensitive life stage of cats. So we've just published these data. We demonstrated, we compared our EnviroBug. This is whole-dried larva, so it represents the meal and the oil fractions of Black Soldier Fly Larvae. And we compared that to a poultry-based kibble. And in the graph here, you can see that the performance of queens during gestation and lactation was similar between those fed the poultry-based diet and the BSFL-based diet. So we had great responses in the queens. And even better responses in the kittens. So the kittens that were weaned from these queens were fed on the same diets that their dams were fed. And we actually had improved growth performance in the kittens fed the whole-dried larva-based diet. Again, extruded kibble, 20% inclusion of whole-dried larvae. So about 75% of that would be the protein fraction and 25% would be the oil fraction. So after we've demonstrated safety and efficacy, the next step in our process is to really make sure that these ingredients are acceptable and palatable and digestible to dogs and cats. So we started with general palatability and acceptance trials in dogs and cats. And in dry kibble, meal, oil, and whole larva is readily acceptable, whether that's inside the extruded kibble or externally applied fat. Interestingly, in retorted diets in cats, we actually demonstrated significant improvements in preference and acceptance. So we have 1.5 to 2 times preference of whole-dried larvae, meal, and oil in retorted diets in adult cats. So great acceptance and great palatability. And then we did the same thing with digestibility. There's a tremendous amount of literature at this point demonstrating digestibility in adult dogs and cats, generally similar to that of premium protein products. What our recent data with our GLG trial demonstrates actually improved protein digestibility in kittens fed 20% whole-dried larvae. So you can see, right here, we have a substantially higher crude protein digestibility and a trend for increasing energy digestibility in kittens fed that whole-dried larva. Again, with the meal and the oil components being represented in the diet. And these digestibility numbers probably are the basis for the kittens being larger during that post-weaning growth phase. So we've demonstrated safety, acceptability, palatability, and good digestibility. And I think along the way, many of us in the industry have learned that these insects have some pretty amazing functional benefits as well. There are 3 primary benefits that we like to talk about. First is antimicrobial peptides. So if you imagine where these insects evolved, it's a pretty inhospitable environment. They have a very simple immune system, and they defend themselves by creating these really tiny peptides. Black soldier fly larvae have more genes for antimicrobial peptides than any animal that's ever been studied. And they're little itsy-bitsy peptides that survive processing. So when the insect makes them and we create meal from that insect to put into a pet food diet, those peptides remain active. And we've seen this demonstrated not only in dogs and cats, but in production animal species as well. These antimicrobial peptides have antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and antiparasite functions. The second basis for functional benefits of black soldier fly larvae is chitin. So chitin is a component of the exoskeleton of these insects. In animals that can digest chitin, like chickens, they can use it as an energy and protein source. In animals that don't digest chitin very well, it acts like a prebiotic, and it helps modulate the gut microbiome. It also can prime the gut immune system. So when there is a disease or clinical challenge, the gut is ready and more prepared for that process. The third major benefit of BSFL-derived ingredients is lauric acid. So Black Soldier Fly larvae, when they're fed carbohydrates, convert those into lauric acid. This is a 12-carbon saturated fatty acid. It's found naturally in palm kernel and coconut oil. BSFL offers a really sustainable alternative to those ingredients as a source of lauric acid. Because of its carbon length, it's actually digestible without enzymes. So in a post-weaning kitten or young puppy, or in a geriatric dog or cat that's having challenges with GI tract function, this can serve as a readily available energy source. It also can cross the blood-brain barrier, so a great opportunity to enhance brain health and mental acuity in dogs and cats. So we know these compounds exist in our products. We know they have activity, but obviously the proof is in the pudding. We want to demonstrate that there's actually bioactivity in the animals that we feed. The antimicrobial and gut health benefits of these ingredients have been demonstrated in virtually every species that's been studied, in aquaculture species, in pigs and chickens. We've now recently worked with colleagues at the University of Illinois to demonstrate some gut health benefits of these products in adult cats. So we fed in the cats in this diet, we're fed 20% whole dried larvae, again, as a opportunity to provide meal and oil, and both of those nutrient profiles from Black Soldier Fly larvae. They were fed for 70 days, and the control diet was a poultry-based kibble. And the plot here on the left shows you the diversity of the microbiome. And so what you see in the dark blue dots and in the orange dots represents the gut microbiome diversity in the cats as they started, and then 70 days after feeding the poultry diet in the orange dots. Or I'm sorry, in the orange dots. In the green dots here, these are the cats that were fed Black Soldier Fly larvae for 70 days. A substantial and significant shift in the microbiome after 70 days of eating this diet. What's more, when you start looking at the populations of the bacteria that are present in the gut of these cats, we generally see higher proportions of bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, generally considered to be beneficial organisms, and lower numbers of Clostridium, generally considered to be pathogenic or detrimental organisms. In addition, clinical markers of gut health, short-chain fatty acids and branched-chain fatty acids, were changed in a beneficial manner with this shift in the microbiome. Our colleagues in Europe have recently demonstrated clinical benefits to skin and coat health. Those data were just published as well. So we know that all of those value-added properties that these insects are providing in companion animal diets have functional impacts on the animals that we're feeding. In addition to functional benefits, good nutrition, good digestibility, and palatability, these ingredients can also contribute to a lower carbon footprint. We and our colleagues in the industry have repeatedly demonstrated a lower greenhouse gas emission potential with Black Soldier Fly Larvae-derived ingredients compared to traditional protein sources, be they animal-based or plant-based protein sources. This also translates into other parameters from a life cycle assessment, like water eutrophication, other parameters that are really Black Soldier Fly larvae can really provide an enhanced benefit in terms of overall impact on environmental sustainability. And then finally, I want to leave you with one very important thought, and that is source matters. These insects have tremendous potential to provide amazing nutrition to the animals that we feed, but they are what they eat. So the feedstock matters. And this really matters because in terms of two major nutrients, it matters for fatty acids. If you feed them long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, you will get a long-chain omega-3 enriched bug. You feed them short-chain fatty acids, you will get short-chain omega-6 or omega-9 fatty acids. The other area that these insects reflect their diet for is minerals and heavy metals. So this paper has just been received and is accepted in press at Poultry Science, so it's available online this week or next. But the authors did a review of heavy metals in imported product and in North American derived Black Soldier Fly larvae. These products were all sourced from retail markets, Amazon, Chewy, Farm and Fleet, and the country of origin was designated on the packaging. So these were not sourced directly from a supplier. What you see is this fold difference in heavy metals is pretty substantial. So 25 times higher lead, 8 times higher arsenic, 20 times higher aluminum. This is really important when we think about feeding very long-lived animals, and frankly, when we produce meat, milk, and eggs from in production animal systems, because these compounds will end up in the bones of our companion animals or in the meat, milk, and eggs of the production animals that we're feeding. So source matters. If you're considering sourcing these ingredients, talk to your suppliers about what they're feeding, about their LCA, so that you can fit these ingredients into your feeding program and your companion animal diets in an appropriate way. So with that, I wanted to leave some time for questions. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Again, Carrie and I are both here We've got some other colleagues from the industry as well. We're happy to talk to you more about Black Soldier Fly Larvae. Thank you.